Joe, for all lang syne. We'll take a cup of kindness chat for all lang syne.
welcome to First Unitarian Church of Toledo.
Good morning.
I'm Joe Moran, this morning's service associate. Commission lay leader David Strickler behind me will lead this service, and our music is provided by our music director Jeffrey Maxey, joined by the First Unitarian Choir and our wonderful soloist Melissa Jeter. We are a church with no doctrine or official creed. Instead, we covenant to support each other in our individual search for truth and meaning. We welcome everyone, as we sang in our opening song. If you're a visitor, you may notice in the pew rack in front of you a bookmark with some details about Unitarian Universalism. Please feel free to take one with you. There's also a yellow card that you may use to introduce yourself to us. And if you include your email address, we will send you our weekly email with news of our various activities. As you meet people today, please feel free to introduce yourself and ask any questions you might have. We are very happy you chose to be here this morning. We also welcome those of you who are joining us on YouTube virtually on our YouTube channel. Later in this service, I will encourage you to attend our coffee, conversation social hour, and fellowship hall right at the conclusion of the service, right down the hallway. It's one of the perks of making this Sunday service a regular in your schedule when you attend in person. Thank you.
As Joe lights the chalice, let's all say the words for the lighting that we are using during this church year. They will appear on the screen here. There we are. We are Unitarian Universalists with minds that think, hearts that love, and hands that are ready to serve. Together, we care for our earth and work for friendship and peace in our world.
Please join me now as we recite our covenant, which is on the screen in front there. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
On our minds, in our hearts, and with our spirits this week are the ongoing armed conflicts in Israel and Gaza and in Ukraine. Too many lives have been lost or disrupted, so we continue to hope for de-escalation and restraint. Moreover, we remind ourselves of our commitment to our sixth principle, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Today is Kuumba, the sixth day of the seven-day Kwanzaa celebration. Kwanzaa is an African and Pan-African holiday created in 1965 to celebrate family, community, and culture. The holiday ends tomorrow with Day 7, dedicated to reflection and recommitment to the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. And tonight is Watch Night, an annual New Year's Eve tradition that includes memories of slavery and freedom, reflections on faith, and celebration of the strength and resilience of African American communities. It marks when African Americans across the country watched and waited on the last day of 1862 for imminent news of freedom. And so tomorrow is the 161st anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation. On the first day of 1863, President Lincoln issued this executive order to free the enslaved people in those states which were in rebellion. In principle, the Emancipation Proclamation freed 3.5 million enslaved people in the 10 states of the Southern Confederacy. However, it did not explicitly address the status of the 500,000 enslaved peoples in the loyal border states of Missouri, Kentucky, Maryland, and Delaware, or in Tennessee, which was mostly under control of Union forces. In reality, the Union forces of the U.S. government still had to defeat the Confederate forces to enforce the Emancipation Order. And to support that military objective, the proclamation also announced the acceptance of black men into the Union Army and Navy, enabling the liberated to become liberators. By the end of the war, almost 200,000 black soldiers and sailors fought for the Union and freedom. Despite its limitations, the Emancipation Proclamation was an important milestone in liberation. Prior to the Civil War, only 2% of Northerners identified as abolitionists. During his presidential campaign, Lincoln declared himself anti-slavery, but he did not support immediate emancipation. In August 1862, Lincoln wrote to newspaper editor and publisher Horace Greeley, "My paramount objective in this struggle is to save the Union and is not either to save or destroy slavery. If I could save the Union without freeing any slave, I would do it." However, the Emancipation Proclamation captured the hearts and imagination of millions of Americans and transformed the character of the war. The war for the Union became a war for freedom. It added moral force to the Union cause and strengthened the Union both militarily and politically. And as we recognize annually on June 19th, it still took 2.5 years for this proclamation to become effective in southern Texas. Closer to home, I have 2 sad notes to report. Reverend Dr. Beverly Bingle passed away on December 28th. She was ordained in this sanctuary as a Roman Catholic woman priest. She served on the steering committee of the Toledo Community Coalition and was a longtime advocate for peace and social justice issues. Rest in peace, Reverend Bingle. Bobby Kokendorfer, a beloved member of this congregation, passed away last Sunday on Christmas Eve. She truly loved being a part of First Unitarian Church of Toledo and seeing her many friends here on Sunday morning. Bobby delighted in passing out beaded bracelets and necklaces to all and sundry. Many of us will miss her bright, cheerful smile on Sundays. Plans for a celebration of her life have yet to be finalized and will be posted when they are. Rest in peace, dear Bobby. Let us remember that holidays can be times of joy and merriment, as well as times of grief, anxiety, or stress. Let us continue to hold members, supporters, and friends of our congregation in our hearts and with our spirits. And let us be thankful that we are together in fact and in spirit. Our opening hymn is number 1018, Come and Go With Me. This hymn probably comes from the African American spiritual tradition and was first recorded in 1930 by blind Willie Johnson, who had an interesting dual career path. He was a blues musician and a Christian evangelist. You'll see the lyrics on the screen, and they will be very helpful because we are adding an extra verse that is not in the Teal hymnal. So please rise as you are willing and able and join Melissa and the choir in singing.
Come
Good morning. We are on the edge of a new year. It's an artificial new beginning, but it's still a time to reflect. Like Janus, the god for whom the month of January is named, we glance back at past joys and sorrows. What has passed can guide us toward what is yet to be. Let's reflect for a moment on some of the things that happened to us in our world in 2023. First, think of the good things. What are you proud of? What were our gains and accomplishments? What were some of the special blessings of 2023? Consider those things for which you are grateful. What would you like to take with you into 2024? There are little packets of paper at the end of each pew, like so. If you could, take those and pass them down your row so that everybody gets one little packet of 2 pieces of paper. I would like to thank Colin and Caden and Avery for helping me make these packets this morning. Are we good? You have a piece of normal paper and a piece of flimsy paper. On the normal paper, if you want to, write down your hopes, your dreams, your wishes, and your goals for the upcoming year. If you don't have any paper or if you don't have a writing implement, raise your hand and we'll kind of redistribute. So take about 30 seconds now and write down what you consider to be the blessings of 2024 on the normal paper. Blessings, things that you are happy about, things that you want to carry forward into the new year, write those down on the normal paper. We come to the opening of 2024 also with regrets, events from the past year that we would like to forget, to put behind us, disappointments, opportunities missed, losses, failures, unwelcome burdens, things you said or did that you wish you hadn't said or done, things you didn't say or do that you wish you had, things you want to let go, angers and fears and regrets, worries and anxiety, hopes unfulfilled. Now, on the thin paper, if you would like to, write those things you want to dispose of. This paper will dissolve almost instantly in water. You can write with pencil, with Sharpie, with ballpoint pen. They will all dissolve equally quickly. In a moment, I will invite you up here to dissolve your flimsy paper in this bowl of water. If you need more time than that to think, please feel free to hold on to your paper for now and then dissolve it after the service ends. So we'll take about 15 seconds or so to think and to write. Time's up. I invite you now to take your flimsy, water-soluble paper, let me start over. I invite you to take your normal, regular paper and keep it in a safe place with you, or perhaps in an obvious place where you can see it every day. And now, if you wish to, come forward and bring those things you want to dispose of together as we let go of our disappointments from 2023. There's a little spoon in the bowl as well if you want to speed up the dissolving process. We have emptied ourselves of the things that make us anxious, that put us in a scarcity mindset, that make us defensive and hurt. We give ourselves permission to release these worries and disappointments, at least as much as we can. Instead, we invite the spirit of Janus, the spirit of good beginnings, to fill us and to cast the light of hope upon the year ahead. It will not be a purely happy new year, for all years are a weaving of joy and sorrow, but it offers us an invitation to open our hearts to the possibility of growth, to know that there is enough love, enough patience, enough joy, enough faith, enough forgiveness. May we create for ourselves a year of new blessings. May we renew our faith in the power of love for this church community, its children, its elders, and for the world outside these walls, to weather the winters of the heart and blossom and bring our best to each other and to the world. Blessed be.
Thank you, Jenny. As our children, youth, and teachers leave for religious education, let's sing them on their way. Today's words for meditation are The Shirk Ethic by Richard Gilbert. After I finish this reading, we will observe a minute of silence for personal contemplation or prayer. O God of work and leisure, teach me to shirk on occasion, not only that I may work more effectively, but also that I may enjoy life more abundantly. Enable me to understand that the earth magically continues spinning on its axis even when I am not tending thy vineyards. Permit me to breathe more easily, knowing that the destiny of the race rests not on my shoulders alone. Deliver me from false prophets who urge me to repent and shirk no more. I pray for thy grace upon me, thy faithful shirker. I'll invite Melissa back to do the reading. I might need to readjust the mic because when we tested it this morning, she sounded great, but it was right in front of her face, and we want to see her.
Thank you. I come from a legacy of exhaustion. My maternal grandmother, Ora, the muse of this work, a refugee from Jim Crow terrorism, rested her eyes every day for 30 minutes to an hour in an attempt to connect and find peace. My great-grandmother, Rhodey, I am told, stayed up late nightly on her farm in deep Mississippi with a pistol in her apron pocket to creatively solve any problems from the Ku Klux Klan. The reality of our survival from white supremacy and capitalism is deeply shocking to me. As a child, I would watch my grandmother, Ora, as she sat on her plastic-covered yellow couch and meditated for 30 minutes every day. She fled her home in Mississippi with thousands of other African Americans during the Great Migration of the 1950s. Ora floated up north on a spaceship built from uncertainty and hope as she landed in Chicago. She magically raised 8 children while dodging poverty, racism, and the invisibility of being a Black woman in America. Her commitment to resting her eyes every day for 30 minutes was radical. Her ability to demand space, just be, was a form of resistance. While my grandmother rested her eyes, I would tiptoe around her home, trying not to wake her up. I always thought she was sleeping while sitting up. I was curious about her rest practice and thought she was so eccentric. Whenever I would inquire if she was sleeping, her response was always the same. Every shut-eye ain't sleep. I'm resting my eyes and listening for what God wants to tell me. While all the world around her was attempting to crush her spirit, she rested and resisted the beast of grind culture. She taught my mother to rest. She taught me to rest.
Good morning. I confess that I am a New Year's curmudgeon. I don't see the point in staying up until midnight. I generally don't make New Year's resolutions because it is such an arbitrary holiday. New Year's is like celebrating the odometer turning over. I remember those long family car trips as a kid, watching over my dad's shoulder as all the mechanical digits on the analog odometer magically turned over together. And then it was done. Nothing had really changed. We still had many miles ahead of us, so I went back to plaintively asking about how much longer. New Year's has about the same level of significance, with one difference. When the year turns over, we more often comment on how fast that year went by, rather than expressing dread of how many years we still have ahead of us. In any case, there's really no significant difference between December 31st and January 1st. You can make a resolution any time of year, so why should I do it when the Earth has returned to some arbitrary position in its orbit around the sun? Dr. Lynn Ungar, a UU minister with the Church of the Larger Fellowship, affirms my skepticism about New Year's resolutions. Most resolutions, it seems to me, come out of some Calvinistic, judgy part of ourselves that knows that we are inadequate, broken, and that we need to be fixed. In my case, fixed not by the grace of God, but rather by that fictional superhero known as willpower. We make resolutions because we are determined to finally make ourselves right, good, admirable, slim. We are broken, but we're going to get fixed. As I try to avoid being Calvinistic and judgy, I usually avoid making resolutions as well. Nevertheless, in a departure from my usual irresolute practice, I have made a resolution for 2024, a resolution that holds the promise of benefits for both my physical health and my spiritual well-being. Moreover, it doesn't require superhuman willpower. I resolve to nap every day. I'm doing this because I heard about something called the Nap Ministry a few years ago from Melissa Jeter. Initially, I thought it was just a bit of lighthearted humor. Then I started noticing memes and quotes from the Nap Ministry on Facebook. For example, naps help you wake up. Rest is a beautiful interruption in a world that has no pause button. I am not a machine. I am a divine being. I can rest. I began to suspect that this nap ministry is more than naps. Indeed, I found something deeper when I read the book Rest is Resistance, a Manifesto by Tricia Hersey, also known as the Nap Bishop. In today's reading, we heard about the strength and resilience of the author's grandmother and her mother, and their powerful influence on her. Tricia Hersey also describes her father and what she learned from him. Willie Hersey had a successful career which started with cleaning train cars and ended with supervising the entire rail yard. His love of God and community fueled him to work a second full-time job concurrently with his railroad job. He served as an assistant pastor at a Pentecostal church. The toxic side to this passion was overwork, exhaustion, and lack of caring for his body, resulting in major health issues: diabetes, obesity, high blood pressure, heart disease, and sleep apnea. Tricia Hersey concludes that her father's early death at age 55, was due to an internalized grind culture. She goes on to emphasize more generally that grind culture is killing us physically and spiritually. The link between sleep deprivation and stress to the development of chronic diseases is real. Sleep, she says, is a public health issue and a racial justice issue, as documented by studies showing a sleep gap between Black Americans and white Americans. Regarding her own life, Tricia Hersey writes, "Rest saved my life. This is my truth." While in a brutally busy graduate program with financial issues, family illness, and the threat of racial violence always swirling around, I started to experiment with rest. My commitment to rest as a form of resistance came from my everyday experiences of being part of the machine-level pace of our culture and surviving the trauma of the terror of poverty, exhaustion, white supremacy, and capitalism. I took to napping all over campus while in seminary and when I was home. I believed that I would rest because I was exhausted physically and spiritually, and I saw no other way to make it. As she was finishing up her Master's of Divinity degree in May 2017, Tricia Hersey was attempting to discern the next steps for a career that was aligned with justice, a forward path that would build on her experiences as a performance artist, as a poet, as a student of theology, and as a community organizer. She had an idea about creating an art piece based on rest, and via a friend of a friend, she was offered a place for the installation. So she decided to host a one-time, one-night performance art event. She furnished the space with yoga mats, pillows, blankets, candles, fresh flowers, a soundtrack of curated music, and a rest altar containing archival photos of Black people resting. You can see her at the front of that slide explaining to the folks what's going to happen. So she invited people, hoping for 10 attendees, not knowing how many people might actually show up for such an unusual event. In the end, 40 people participated. This is a photo from the nap altar that she says she uses every time. And you can see those are Freedom Riders from 1961 napping between rides on the bus for civil rights and voting rights. So that first experience became known as the collective napping experience. And here it is in action. She wrote afterwards, "There was a moment when everyone in the room was peacefully sleeping at the same time, a powerful silence. And I remember being overwhelmed by this divine moment. Collective napping experiences have now become a regular and important part of her ministry. However, she notes that it is never easy to explain why I started the nap ministry. It is so layered, nuanced, and organic. When describing the passing of her father, Tricia Hersey used the phrase grind culture. She returns to that phrase many times to explain the radical power of rest. She says, grind culture has made us all human machines, willing and ready to donate our lives to a capitalist system that thrives by placing profits over people. Rest is radical because it disrupts the lie that we are not doing enough. Rest proclaims, I am enough. I am worthy now and always because I am here. This philosophical perspective reminds me of our first principle, in which we covenant to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Typically, I think about that principle as reminding me to affirm the worth and dignity of other people. The Nat Bishop is telling us that we also need to affirm our own worth and dignity. I am worthy of rest because I am divine. This grind culture that she writes about is not a conspiracy of a coordinated, powerful group of elites. No, she says, we are grind culture. Grind culture is the result of our everyday behaviors, expectations, and engagements with each other and the world around us. Grind culture arises from connecting our worth to how much we produce or focusing on energy. Talking about how busy or overworked we are, affirming others for their busyness, evaluating or judging people on their educational attainment, employment situation, career successes, or material worth. Although grind culture is not a conspiracy of the powerful, it occurs at the intersection of two powerful organizing themes in our country: capitalism and white supremacy. Capitalism was grown on plantations, those large farm enterprises which specialized in growing cash crops such as sugarcane, cotton, tobacco. The roots of plantation capitalism are theft and violence. Theft of land from the indigenous peoples, violent theft of labor from enslaved peoples, including Africans and Native Americans. White supremacy is a term with different layers of meaning and nuance. Hersey's use of the term white supremacy may sound jarring or controversial because we typically use it to describe explicit extremist hate groups such as the KKK or neo-Nazis. However, Tricia uses the term in the sense of white supremacy culture, which is a term used by sociologists and by others who write about the subject of race and privilege. In this context, white supremacy is a descriptive term for the culture we live in, a culture in which white people, white history, white behavior, white speech are considered the norm. Because we have been in the majority for centuries. And often we assume or conflate, we assume that the norm must be better or superior for a reason. The norm is the way the majority does things and the way we have always done things. So normal is the way we should always continue doing those things. I had a different experience with cultural supremacy. I worked for a British-owned company for 30 years. I liked my work. I liked my colleagues. Many of them were great friends. But it was stressful at times because I sensed that they considered the American approach lesser in some way. The American approach was lesser, the German approach was lesser, the Japanese approach was lesser. That was my experience. She goes on to say that the toxic intersection of capitalism and white supremacy can be seen in the colonial history of the United States. In the 1620s and 30s, English colonists settled in New England so that they could freely practice their version of Christianity without fear of repression. Within 2 decades, Massachusetts created the first laws regarding enslavement of indigenous peoples, because enslavement was an answer to the labor shortage that they were experiencing. This system of slavery did not become as extensive as the enslavement of African Americans in the South. Moreover, the English colonists justified enslavement because the Indians and their culture were different and thus inferior to the European culture in terms of religion, land utilization, property rights, and other practices. A century later, the colony of Georgia was founded by James Oglethorpe, who intended an agrarian society of yeoman farmers that prohibited slavery. However, when it seemed that there were not enough white settlers to do all the work that was needed to clear Georgia, farm it, and make it economically viable, Oglethorpe agreed to allow slavery. So we see that from the northernmost colony to the southernmost, economic priorities often superseded human considerations. In hindsight, we see the flaws in such justifications. Understanding and accepting the truth of our history can lead to defensiveness, guilt, grief, and strong emotions. But to quote Jenny's story this morning, what is in our past will guide us in what will be. Hopefully, we will make better decisions in our time about the economic and moral trade-offs that we might face. While reading the preface and introduction to Rest is Resistance, I concluded that the theology stealthily revealed by the Nat Bishop is relevant to Unitarian Universalists. However, I was uncertain and uncomfortable about how to share it appropriately. I'm only vaguely familiar with the Black Pentecostal church that Tricia Hersey was raised in, and I don't know her current religious affiliation. So I want to avoid disrespecting or misrepresenting her faith tradition. And Tricia Hersey, as a Black woman, can authentically describe how people of color in this country have experienced the oppressions at the intersection of capitalism and white supremacy culture, and that the Nat ministry was inspired by the need to acknowledge and resist such oppressions. But I have not experienced those traumas. So I was worried about misappropriating her message by presenting it superficially without appreciating the underlying or intended meaning. So I was relieved when I reached page 75, where Ms. Hersey posed the very question that was troubling me. She writes, "Is the Nat ministry just for Black people?" Her answer is clearly no. This message is for all those suffering from the ways of white supremacy and capitalism. Everyone on this planet, including the planet itself, is indeed suffering from these two systems. The way in which this suffering manifests for each group is unique to their history. She continues, "Also, what does it help me to live in a world where I am the only one who is liberated from the grips of grind culture? I still have to engage and collaborate with those bound up and moving from a place of fear and urgency." To reinforce this point, she quotes Reverend Martin Luther King's famous line in his letter from the Birmingham jail. "All people are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. This statement could be a precursor to our own seventh principle, which affirms the interdependent web of existence of which we are a part. The title of the book, Rest is Resistance, does not explicitly include the word napping, because daytime sleeping is not the only way to rest. As she says, rest is anything that slows you down enough to connect your body and mind. Rest can be dreaming, daydreaming, reading, listening to books or poetry, writing, or other creative arts. Rest can also be active, dancing, swimming, walking, hiking, or sauntering, which is a term I liked because, as Thoreau informed us, sauntering comes from the French language for going to the Holy Land. Rest is for anyone caught up in the web of grind culture. Resting should not be considered a bonus, a luxury, or a privilege. We don't earn rest. We are each worthy of rest. The peoples of Abrahamic faith traditions know that according to Genesis chapter 2, verse 2, on the seventh day, God rested. While there's no textual evidence to indicate that God napped or even slept, the next verse states pretty clearly that God blessed and sanctified the seventh day as a day of rest. Clearly, rest is not only divinely inspired, it is divinely required. Before closing, I have a quote from Tricia Hersey's introduction to her book. I wish you rest today. I wish you a deep knowing that exhaustion is not a normal way of living. You are enough. You can rest. You must resist anything that doesn't center your divinity as a human being. You are worthy of care. And so, I wish you all a happy and restful New Year. Amen.
We now come to the offering portion of our service. There are many ways that you can financially support First Unitarian Church of Toledo. We may have a screen up there. You can go online. You can actually aim your phone at the QR code here, uutoledo.org. And click on Giving, Give, then an online giving. You can mail a check to our church address, First Unitarian Church, 3205 Glendale, 43614 is the zip code, or you may drop your offering in the basket in the foyer. On the back of the pews, you'll find an envelope that looks like this. You can place your donation in it and in the basket as you leave. So another way you can support the church. Since resolution is our topic today and resolute is our sermon heading next week, and the start of the new year is the time many of us make resolutions. I'd encourage everyone to make a resolution that if not already taking part in one or more of the activities at First Unitarian Church, you do so. Some are listed in the program under the heading Community in your bulletin. There are a number of committees such as Buildings and Grounds, Security, Unitarian Action, and Social Justice, Technology, and being a worship associate like myself on the occasional Sunday morning. Without volunteers, many of these critical functions would tap our budget, and we welcome and honor all those who freely share their time and talent in supporting the mission and work of this church. If you've been considering more involvement or would just like more information, please ask a church member, and they'll be happy to direct you to a person familiar with the activity or committee. And I rest my case.
The congregation's going to sing along with this. Okay, please join us for our offertory. Number 1010, we give thanks. Thank you for that offertory. It's the coming soon part of our service where we'll tell you what's on the calendar for next week, maybe some announcements today, maybe not. And we also let you know what's up right after the service. Next Sunday, 9:45, our spiritual forum, Tim Reichard will lead a discussion on mental health, disease, and depression. He will share his personal struggles and those of others, including animal friends. He also looks forward to hearing experiences of others. And at 11 o'clock next Sunday, our senior minister, Reverend Dr. T.K. Barger, will lead the service. His sermon is entitled Resolute.
And immediately after the service, please join us for coffee hour and fellowship hall. All are invited to attend for coffee and conversation. Visitors especially, please join us for conversation. We are not a high-pressure church, but simply want to welcome you and meet you where you are at.
While I read our standard words for this church year for sending the flame, Joe will extinguish the chalice fire. Please join me when the words appear on the screen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we will carry in our hearts until we are together again. Our postlude, Auld Lang Syne, words by Scottish poet Robert Burns, set to a traditional tune.
Oh
think whenever we want.
I was wondering if you guys would mind have a cup of coffee or something while I run to my house and feed the cats and come back and pick you up. Otherwise, you're stuck sitting in my, you can't get into my house. Oh, yeah.